So this is my mayhaw tree, or bush, whatever you want to call it. It's about 16, 17 foot high right at the top. But, you know, most of the trees probably around 14 to 15 foot tall, maybe about 12 foot wide. Possibly a little bit more on this end, these lower ends here. But it has been blooming for probably 10 years plus. I got this at a local hardware store. They had that has a little landscape center, Ace Hardware, in Melrose, I believe. And when I bought this, one of the employees said, well, you know, we bought one or something and it didn't survive. This one I actually planted in the ground. It died completely down to the ground. And then it came up. And I think it died 2 or 3 times to the ground for whatever reason. And then when it started really getting a growth flush, it's been fine ever since. It likes wet areas. This is bordering on swamp. So, and it's in pretty good bloom right now. It's been blooming probably for a month, but just not as heavily as it has in the last week or so. So, they need pollinators, and that's a big issue here because I think around the panhandle they grow kind of wild, or people planted them many years ago, and it's easy to get pollination. But a little bit further south in north central Florida, they're probably pollinating with some other kind of native hawthorn or something, or somebody else's other, you know, thing they planted, which most likely isn't a mayhaw. Like, I don't know if Indian hawthorns or the native parsley hawthorns would, I'm assuming they would pollinate them at least a little bit, but you do not get a big pollination rate with these guys. So you really need another genetically different plant, a mayhaw plant nearby, probably within like 60 feet to get good pollination. And the thing is, I have several other genetically different mayhaws, but none of them have bloomed yet. So in this area, I actually used to have, I think, 3 different genetically different mayhaw trees. One is right here. It's not much younger than the big tree. It just hasn't had a lot of growth. This one is just now breaking dormancy. See them little tips there? So there's a little leaf bud. But these guys would flower before they leaf out, and continue to flower as the leaves come out, as you can see on this one. Then I had one over here, genetically different one, but there are some here, but they're actually root suckers. The original genetically different one died, and these are all root suckers of that one. There's like one there, one there. They'll go like down this way and over here and over here. And so they'll go in different directions and just sucker up. So even if these guys here flowered, they would not pollinate that tree. This little twig here is another one that's actually similarly aged, and it hasn't grown hardly any. It's like 2 foot. It's not even pencil thick. It's still alive, still leaves out, but for whatever reason, and this is even a wetter area, this stays wet like 6 or 8 months out of the year, and maybe that's why it's not really growing, I don't know. But maybe eventually it'll get a growth spurt, and then we can have some blooms. And this is a genetically different plant. And lastly, this is my second largest mayhaw. As you can see, it's already leafing out. There's no sign of flowers. It's probably, you know, pretty tall, taller than me. And this is the one that I suspect will actually flower and be the pollinator for that main one, that first one I got. Whenever it actually decides to flower, I just the growth and the size, and you know how vigorous it is, that just tells me it's most likely the one that's going to pollinate the other one. And we still get a few of the berries and stuff without pollination, just from probably some wild hawthorns, or like I said, maybe something somebody planted that's semi-compatible. But and then you have to worry about rust, like cedar apple rust and stuff like that. And once you get a good pollination and get a lot of the berries or fruits, you probably have to have a good spraying routine. So are they worth it? I really don't know, because they're mainly a poisonous seed with just a really tiny bit of flesh around them that you extract or whatever the juice from and make berries and all that good stuff. Here's kind of a different view of it right there. I guess the forest is on this side, so it's kind of growing like that toward the sun. But it's done really well. So one day we'll get hopefully thousands, if not tens of thousands, of mayhaws on here, and then have a good genetic variation. I don't know if I would actually plant more of these, because I already have 4 genetically different plants, and I'm not sure if I would even go with the grafted ones that have bigger berries or whatever. So the claim to fame with mayhaws is it's the world's best jelly. They have a mayhaw festival in Georgia, and they may have one in like Louisiana or Texas as well, I'm not sure. In Georgia, where they grow wild, they often grow near like the banks of a stream or creek or whatever, and people shake the tree, the berries fall into the stream, somebody takes a net downstream, collects the berries, and then they process them into jelly. In the Florida Panhandle, there's a grove, possibly wild or possibly planted, possibly more than one grove of mayhaws that they just use. I think they're in kind of wetlands too, from what I've heard, a flood zone. And when they put a tarp underneath the trees, and then they just shake the tree, and the berries fall into the tarp. They collect the berries and either press them, or they boil and press them, and then they make their jelly with them. So in like 3 or 4 states, they have some kind of limited commercial production value. I've eaten mayhaw jelly several times. There's only the local grocery stores occasionally get these little indie, I guess, jelly makers make a deal with them to sell it. So, and you might see it on the grocery store for 2 or 3 months. Then it might be years before you see it in another grocery store. It's not really consistent, or at least I haven't seen any that was consistent. And so yeah, there doesn't seem to be like a huge commercial thing going on with mayhaws.